And we're back talking about corruption in Rhode Island politics with a couple of former Rhode Island politicians and clean guys. We vetted you before we invited you on. So
thank you very much.
Thank you for saying that.
You were talking about lobbyists. You think lobbyists are the evil up there, or in general? Because it seems to me what we see in these recent cases, whether it was North Providence, there's a developer that wanted something done.
I don't want to call them all as being evil, because members of the General Assembly have to be educated on issues.
Right.
You know, I often used to say to myself, and somewhat in serious and somewhat in jest, is that maybe we should have a system where lobbyists can communicate only by virtue of email correspondence. So there's a record of what they have to say to the members of the Assembly.
Yeah.
Then on the lighter side of the equation, maybe we should outlaw the game of golf so there isn't that kind of schmoozing that takes place.
Yeah, but lobbying can occur in many different ways. Lobbying can be through the paid lobbyists that we're so familiar with, but it could also be from those advocates and good government people who are lobbying on behalf of things that are good. So lobbyists per se are not bad. It's just that when you have illegal activity going on by a lobbyist or by a vendor, that's when you get into trouble.
I mean, Common Cause is up there on a daily basis.
Yes.
Thank goodness
and the
they are.
ACLU,
you know, so
and there's all kinds of organizations.
100%.
So what would be the systemic change? Now, we talked a little bit about maybe a full-time legislature. You think that would remove some?
No,
but Massachusetts has a full-time legislature. No. Their last 3 speakers went to jail.
We're not that size of a state that we need a full-time legislature. Sorry.
Well, we could have. I really do think that we could have a full-time legislature, but not the size that we currently have.
Right.
If it was down to 50 representatives and 25 senators being paid a reasonable amount of money, that's not going to solve the problem of bribery and extortion and money being exchanged. That's just a systematic change where now all of a sudden the light is shown on a smaller group of people that you can see.
And they don't need to. They don't need outside income to support themselves.
Right. Matter of fact, in Congress, when I served in Congress, as it is now, you cannot have an outside source of revenue or income. You can't accept any other cut-in job or other income. But that only solves part of the problem, that is revenue for the individual. It doesn't mean that they're going to be honest about what they're doing, and certainly we can find examples in full-time legislatures and in Congress where you've had people do illegal activities.
Oh yeah.
I take a different position, and all due respect to the Congressman, I don't believe we need a full-time General Assembly. I mean, we're smothered by government as it is, but we need to equip those agencies who have some oversight responsibility, such as the Board of Elections. They have one auditor, one attorney. We need people from the Bureau of Audits to be able to go in and audit these campaign accounts, so we can conclude that whoever it may be is not lining their own pockets.
And it should be done in a very new technology way. That
Absolutely.
kind of auditing.
Absolutely.
As an
Absolutely.
audit, what you do as an independent auditor, what we would have is they would come in and not only look at our records of what we filed, like any kind of elected official files their records, but also you look at the bank statements, and you have access into the bank statements so you can reconcile the differences, and you can see indeed how they were spending money. But that's assuming that they are taking money through their campaign account. And that's not the way it normally works.
The other thing, Bill, is that you're doing a public service just by running shows such as this. Because when there is a negative, such as we had last week with Fox, we have to capitalize on those. We've got to do that off-tackle play and run through that hole to continue to educate the public and the political leadership that the integrity of the quotient of the state of Rhode Island is on the line here, and people have to buckle down and do something about it, not just today,
but people
on a
can't.
continual
people,
basis.
All the time. As you said earlier, it's vigilance.
But what do regular people do? I mean, they call the talk radio.
Elect good people. Elect good, honest people. Just don't go with the flow. Don't go with the individual that's going to give your cousin Johnny the job. Go with the individual that's got the high integrity quotient.
Yeah, but self-interest is what drives it.
Well, it's time to put that out of the business. Self-interest is not what it's about.
Transparency and being able to see exactly what they do, how they do it, is certainly extremely helpful. But I'll get back to the old thing we've mentioned 2 or 3 times, that if the voters are not putting the feet to the fire of those individuals, then indeed they're going to have problems. Good example. 1985, 1986 in the General Assembly, everybody was seemingly very happy about the economy, about good government, etc. That's when the RISD crisis actually occurred in 85, 86, 87. It was when everybody was fat and happy and no one was questioning the way credit unions were being operated, the way legislators were pushing down legislation that would check on those things, the way regulators were not doing their job as well. As a result of that, we finally came to the fruition that We had a banking crisis in 1991 when Bruce Sunderland had to
so-
go down the
so-
savings and the credit unions.
You're up
the
there,
thing,
you're
right?
up there
If I
at
can
that time,
interrupt you for a minute, Bill.
and you see that people are suppressing legislation that would oversee these credit unions a little more strictly. Is there a way to sort of blow the whistle on stuff
Bill,
as a
You do it through
legislator?
advocacy.
Exactly. Right now, I mean, we have a situation with 38 studios where the public has totally lost faith in our government to remedy what's an absolute wrong. So where are we with any investigations on 38 studios? I'm not faulting any of the prosecution. I'm simply saying, how about subpoena power for a House or Senate committee to conduct an investigation, or convening a special grand jury to publish a report, if nothing else?
Is this because we don't have
the
faith in our law enforcement system?
No, I don't
I
believe
mean, the
so.
Attorney
What I'm-
General said he looked at it.
I don't think
State
that's the
police
case.
said
I
they looked at
think
it.
the fact is that, number one, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And when I say behind the scenes, I think there's still some real rock solid investigations going on. But the fact is that the public needs to have faith and confidence in their government. And in order to do that, we cannot leave issues on the sidelines that are causing the public to have daily concern.
Oh, so you're in that group that says, forget this, it's behind us, let's move forward. That's what Mattiello says, that's what Mundo says, we don't need to look back. You think we need to look back?
You have to look back, because if you don't look back at the history of what happened, then you're going to be doomed to do it again in the future.
Exactly. You don't air out your laundry; it stays dirty, right?
Yeah.
And so that profile stays dirty. So if you're really transparent with the negative dimensions of your state and say we are going to move forward. I mean, I respect the people in the office that say we have to move forward. Clearly we do. But we can't do that at the expense of just pulling the wool over everybody's eyes and say everything was fine and dandy beforehand.
So you would call for an establishment of some kind of oversight committee and give them subpoena powers?
In select instances.
Yeah.
You know, and right now, I mean, there may be a 38 studio connection going on. I mean, Fox was an integral part of that. So that may be part of be part of the federal and state investigation. So that may be going on. But the public needs at some point in time to be able to be well educated as to exactly what happened. I mean,
and at this point, it's all being swept aside because the people in power now owe their power to the people that preceded them who put us in that jam.
Well, I don't want to.
That's got a point.
Absolutely, but I don't want to say it's swept aside because I have faith in law enforcement. I mean, you get some FBI agents there that are not going to back down. Believe me. I know them. I respect them enormously, and so I don't want to say we have to wait and see. But I'd suggest let's wait, but not too long. Mm-hmm. Let's not.
So as we wrap up this conversation, what do you see going forward? What would help to clean up the system?
Well, first, the system with regard to campaign finance and reporting, I think, is very poor. And as Jim said, there's only a couple people as watchdogs looking over that. Need to be better. I think that the Board of Elections needs to be able to have the ability to go into bank accounts and to look at campaign bank accounts just like they look at campaign records and do it electronically. You do that kind of reconciliation, examination, that auditing that's important. Also believe that you need to be able to clean up the system at the General Assembly about having these people who are working a job over here and then coming to do this job over here. You're being burnt at both ends of the candle. I don't think that's healthy and it's not good. Yeah. I've never been a believer in term limits, but I tell you, I'm beginning to get to that level where
term limits by the end of the session.
And why do you think, why would term limits help?
Because you
move them out.
You're going to recycle people, and not recycle. Excuse me. You're going to move them out. You're going to have fresh blood in that assembly. I always say one of the things we need in our state is an injection of outside blood. I mean, when people move into the state, they say why. So we need people that are going to ask the question why. And when you do that, you're going to deter people from compromising their integrity, because you're not going to be just looking aside. You're going to be saying, why is that happening?
Thomas Jefferson said the same thing when they were first forming this country, and the Constitution was being drawn up and Madison was drawing it up. They were thinking about, should we have term limits? Indeed, if someone is making their livelihood long-term on the public dole in that fashion as a legislator, don't we need new blood? Don't we need to have new ideas coming
in? We got to wrap it up, General.
I thought, Bill, excuse me. Okay. So there's a lot of thoughts. I mean, you can't cover this in a short period of time.
I appreciate you guys coming in.
But
And,
Thank you, Bill.
New blood is the bottom line, I think. We're going to be back with the Wingmen right after this break.